talking Illinois high school football.
If your goals are as high as you talk about, tonight's the night you go out and just take one more step.
It's a view from the West.
And it starts right now!
Welcome into View from the West podcast, brought to you by Breedlove Sporting Goods, part of the River Rivals Media Network. This, of course, the podcast talking high school football on the western side of the state of Illinois. I'm your host tonight, Mitch Stoermer, once again given the keys to this bus. It took 6 years, I think, for me to do one show, and now I've done two in the past couple of months. So Greg's a little busy tonight. He would love to be here. He's stuck at state baseball in Des Moines tonight, but the show must go on because it's a big one. This is the 2025 NUIC and 8-man preview episode, normally one of our most popular episodes. Big reason for that, you know, if we're talking NUIC and 8-man, we got to bring in the expert, the leading expert on such matters. It's Kyle Kampmier back in the studio. How are you, bud?
I'm good, Mitch. How are you, man?
Man, it's hard to believe that it's already the 21st of July. We're almost a month away from kickoff. Isn't that hard to believe?
It is. It's going by fast. I think we're down to, 39 days now? It's going real fast.
It's crazy. If it's fast for us, it's fast for the teams. Only a few weeks to get everything right. But in this conference, boy, they got to make sure everything's fine-tuned week in and week out. So can't wait to dive into the madness with you here tonight. But first, got to thank our presenting sponsor. You know who it is. Tonight's episode is brought to you by our friends at Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, online team stores. They provide all the same sporting goods services as the big nationwide companies, but with a faster turnaround. And their uniform pricing is a fraction of the cost you're probably used to. They offer name brands such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. Check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com for more information. Couple of news and notes here, Kyle, before we dig in deep. Last Friday, the I8FA did release their schedule, so certainly we talked a little bit about that on our last episode. Greg and I did, but if you want to check out schedules for every team in the state, every classification, check out their new website, IHSA.org. Kyle, have you driven around on that new website? It looks good, the redesign.
Yeah, I've been working on it a little bit here and there. It does look nice. I see they got everything matched up with max preps now, which will hopefully make loading scores and all that good stuff easier for them, along with for the fans to follow along. But yeah, the navigation a little bit's been a little tricky. I've heard a couple complaints about it, but yeah, I think once you get familiarized with it, you'll be ready to go.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you change something for the first time in 10, 15 years, it's going to take some getting used to. So, but yeah, it's all there. All that information, like I said, the schedules are fully out. You can check those out on IHSA.org. Another note here, coaches preview forms. We still have a few out there. We're rolling along here in our preview episode. Certainly tonight is NUIC and 8-man. Got a lot of great feedback from the coaches in these two fields. So thank you to all of our local coaches for helping us out. Coming up here, the 29th of July, we'll have our Lincoln Land Conference. Still need a few forms filled out for that. August 5th is our track preview with Ty Taylor from WRMJ. August 12th will be our big Northern Conference. And August 19th, our final preview episode, that will be the Western Big Six. So again, if you have not seen your coach's preview form, please let us know. viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. We've been reaching out on Twitter this week and had some good response there. So it's hard to get these coaches this time of year, Kyle. You know how that goes. So anything that coaches you can provide so we can talk about your team, we certainly appreciate it. Again, we are rolling along here in the preview season as trying to get coaches before they get real deep into their practice schedule, which I imagine is coming up here pretty quick, Kyle.
Yeah, you know it is. I mean, you got football camps starting to pick up. If they haven't already started, they will be starting here this week, next week. And then you have dead week the week after. And then we're rolling right into the first 2 weeks of practice, getting prepared for that first week of games coming up on August 29th. So things are, like you said, they're moving very fast. We only have 2 weeks left here in the month of July. It's hard to believe already because I feel like we just started July, but here we are. We're already past the midway point and getting ready to turn into August.
Yep. Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun here coming up. Certainly join us. Kyle, you're going to be there, the inaugural View from the West kickoff party.
Yes, that's what I heard. I heard that I'm a part of the show, so I'm excited.
You're certainly part of the show. What is that, Sunday, August 17th? Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Sunday, August 17th, 5 p.m. at the Other Bar in downtown Moline. Kyle, we've gotten a lot of good responses from coaches. This should be a packed show. It'll be a lot of fun. Coaches, student athletes, parents, fans, everyone is welcome to join us at the live podcast event, again, at the Other Bar in downtown Moline, celebrating the 2025 season. As I mentioned, we'll have local coaches, area experts like Kyle live to preview the upcoming season, working alongside with our friends at Breed Loves for giveaways and raffles and maybe some merch that will be available. Going to be a lot of fun. So again, save that date, Sunday, August 17th, 5 p.m., the Other Bar in downtown Moline. Should be a great event. Kyle, not sure I can be there in person, but I know in my absence, you will do a great job. Again, sounds like the agenda is filling up pretty quickly with coaches. And the excitement's in the air, so can't wait to celebrate with everybody live on air.
Well, it's always better when you're there in person, Mitch, because, people come to the show to see you and Greg. Not so much me because it's not my show, but, if you can't make it, I understand. It's quite a bit of a travel for you, but we'll fill in and do the best that we can for you.
I'll tell you what, if we can get another one of these NUIC teams in Bloomington, I'll see you there. How's that sound?
Hey, that sounds like a plan to me, bud.
Hey, if we're talking to NUIC and we're talking state championships, those two things have gone hand in hand for decades, it seems like, right? So this is, again, one of our favorite episodes, one of our longest episodes usually with everything that we have to talk about. Kyle, a conference that you know better than anyone else. For anyone new to the area, new to the show, give me a view from 30,000 feet of the NUIC conference for anybody who isn't aware.
Well, I mean, the NUIC conference has boasted a lot of state champions. We have 20 plus state champions. We have had a team in the state finals for 8 consecutive seasons heading into the 2025 season. And then, for the better part, I think it's like 15 out of the last 18 seasons now we've had a team representing down at state. With that, out of all those teams, we've come back with a runner-up title 4 times, 2 by Stockton and 2 most recently by Lena Winslow. But we tend to win more than we lose. So it's a powerhouse conference. We have a lot of schools. Well, I shouldn't say we have a lot of schools. We do technically. We have 21 schools in the conference, but for football purposes, there are 9 teams that compete within the NUIC in 11-man football. And with that, it's a dog-eat-dog world every week. Everybody knows that if you want to make the playoffs, you have to make sure you get those 5 wins, which is cliche around the state of Illinois, but we've seen many times where we can take a 3-6 team up against a 6-3 team in another area, and we usually come out on top. So the win record in our conference compared to out-of-conference opponents is drastically in favor of the NUIC, which speaks to the volumes. Just in the decade now that I've been running NUICfootball.com, we have seen a lot of people start to pay more attention to the northwest corner of the state, which has been really what we wanted to do with NUICfootball.com, was to bring more exposure to the area and get people more in depth and in tune with what goes on, because we're so isolated in the state. You always heard about the teams that would be sitting down at state waiting to knock your teeth out, but you didn't really know about them. And we've been able to do that. And with that, it's created quite the following over the last decade.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. As I said at the top of the show, the leading expert in Northwest Upstate Illini sitting alongside me tonight. What more can you say? And I'm not asking this as a question to you, Kyle. I'm just speaking in generalities. You look at the resume of the NUIC conference. and we've said on this show plenty of times, there is no doubt in my mind it is the best small school conference in the state of Illinois. And if you put it up against conferences in other divisions, it stacks up. It's just has that much history behind it. You just rattled off the state champions, the runner-ups, just the trips to the state championships even. And as you said, this is a dogfight week in and week out. And we'll get into this in some of the teams here, their records last year, and I think how they'll improve this year. But when teams go up, another team drops down. And it's just, you look at the schedule sometimes and you think, well, where are these wins going to come? But then you see teams last year like Stockton and EPC, who previously had maybe been at the bottom half of the conference, start building their way up. We're going to see that again this year. So it'll be exciting to see how that all shakes out. Again, that race for 5 wins. This conference, more than any, might be the bigger advocate of district football, because like you said, you could put in a 3-6 team, a 4-5 team who may not make it in the current model of the playoffs and do really, really well. The other part of that is if you keep it in the format that it is in now, but you go to 1 through 32, you're going to see more teams make it and not have these first round matchups and second round matchups that are just repeats of games a couple weeks prior. So regardless of how the postseason looks, the regular season is always a joy. And so I want to jump into these teams with you here. And if we're talking NUIC, we're talking 11-man. We got to start at the top. Let's talk about the Lena Winslow Panthers. 13-1 last year. The defending conference champions went to the state championship last year. Of course, fell to Althoff Catholic. Head coach Rick Aaron has the namesake of the field now up there. A brand new football field. That thing's ready to go this year, right? That looks great.
It will be. It's still a dirt pile right now, but yeah, it's on plan to open up by the opening week. So, brand new turf field, brand new stands that actually expand from 20-yard line to 20-yard line. So, all the bad things that you hear about attending a game at Lena Winslow, hopefully this stadium project will change that. It'll definitely increase the amount of seating availability. The downfall is still that the bleachers are all going to be on one side of the field, but it's definitely going to be much more expanded out to allow more seating capacity, and overall will increase the atmosphere at Lena Winslow. So, I mean, everybody's excited about it. I'm not even from Lena, and I'm excited to see it, but it should be a great thing for the area for sure.
And we'll talk about it in a minute if they open up that stadium with one of the biggest games of the year there in week 2. Let's talk about these Panthers. Such a good team last year, and they bring a lot back. Let's just start on the offense here. Quarterback Cash Leishman's back. Alex Schlichting, maybe one of the fastest athletes we cover, is back in the backfield. Aiden Wild, one of the toughest running backs. Kobe Kearns. You could just go down the list here of all these players that are coming back, not even mentioning that O-line that's always tough. Gannon Dunker, of course, still around. Preston Schultz, Duncan Neville. This is a team on offense that looks equipped to put up massive points like they did last year.
Well, when you take a look at the top 3 backs that you were just talking about between Schlichting, Wild, and Kearns, you're talking literally just shy of 4,000 career rushing yards there alone, coming back in that backfield with a combined 55 rushing touchdowns. And, somebody's going to have to step up and fill the spot vacated by Jalen Rakowska. Kobe Kearns can be that guy that fills in at that fullback position, where Jimmy Goebel was last season as well. And then, like you said, you got that thunder and lightning type backfield with Schlichting and Wild. Wild, the Mr. Inside, and Schlichting, Mr. Outside, kind of takes you back to the days of Army back in the late 40s when they were winning all the time, And that's what Lena Winslow reminds me of. And, with Leishman at quarterback, he proved last year as a junior that he was very good at being able to control that offense, and got him back to the state championship game. Like you said, unfortunately lost to Althoff Catholic, but at the same token, just to be able to have the group of kids that they had last year that didn't have quite the playing time the year before in that state championship team that lost to Camp Point Central, they were still able to reload, so to speak. And, that's the thing with Lena Winslow. And earlier in the segment, when you were talking about teams coming up and other teams have to go down, there's been quite a few times in the last 15 years during Lena Winslow's reign of terror, so to speak, that, you thought that, hey, this could be the year that Lena Winslow doesn't make the playoffs. And then all of a sudden, here they come.
Yeah. I don't know if anyone's been questioning if they're going to make the playoffs. Maybe we thought that maybe a team would eclipse them. Maybe it was a Dupec in years past. I don't know ever questioning if Lena was going to make the playoffs. So Kyle, come on.
Well, there was a time I thought, it would have been 2016, the first year I started doing this. They opened up in Pearl City against EPC, and I didn't feel that Lena Winslow in that opening game was going to be a team that was going to get to the playoffs that year, but they mustered out a 7-2 record that year and made it to the quarterfinals, where they got their doors blown off by Foreston, who went on to win state that year. But you're right. They continually battle. And if you look at Rick Aaron's resume, he's sitting on 260 career wins as the head coach of Lena Winslow. He's only missed the playoffs one time, and that came all the way back in year 2 in 1998. And that team went 6-3. Of course, if that team had played in this era, they would have been a playoff team. But at that time, 6-3 was an at-large, and they didn't have enough playoff points to get in that year.
Yeah, you can see with stats like that, you can see why the new field is named in his honor, and why he's 19 wins away from tying the NUIC all-time record.
That is correct, which is also his former head coach, John O'Boyle from Stockton.
Okay. Yeah, again, looking back at the playoffs, I mean, 70 against Clifton Central, 44 against a great Stockton team, 40-42 against Gibson City and Leroy. This, again, was an offense that clicked at the right time. Go back to week 9, they put up 58 points against Forreston, over 500 points on the year. And you talk about bringing a lot of that talent back. Boy, that is going to be a tough task for any defense here in the NUIC to stop. Defensively, a lot of the names we talk about, again, Schlichting playing in the backfield, Ashton Gerber's back there too, Miles Mahan and Kearns and Wild there in the middle at linebacker, Dunker and Schultz anchoring that line. There's names everywhere on this defense. Again, a stout defense last year that really didn't allow a ton of points. And again, certainly in those playoffs before the state championship game. So what does this defense bring to the table this year for the Panthers?
Well, I think it's going to bring a lot. Obviously, you're gonna miss some pieces, but at the same time, you return quite a few pieces. And having Dunker up front, for one, is going to be a huge piece to that. You have Miles Mann back at linebacker, who is a missile-type player. And I say that because he wants to attack the ball at any point that he can. You throw Wild and Kearns into that linebacker role as well. You have a good, fast linebacking crew there that are going to come up. And if you're thinking about Miles Mann, his brother Brody Mann was on that 2021 state championship team that beat Carrollton, and he had a great state championship game down there that year. Miles Mann's been playing linebacker for Lena Winslow for the last 2 seasons, really started to come into his own last season. And just like Brody did in his senior year, I expect Miles to have a bigger breakout again this season, being his last year wearing the black and gold.
I might have said Mahan there. That was a flub by me. Sorry, Miles. Brody had a was it pick 6 in that state championship game?
I don't remember if he had a pick 6, but I remember he had one of those big vicious hits in the back of the end zone that broke up a pass play. And
I think if I remember that game right, he was all over. I think he had a fumble recovery, and I don't remember if it was pick 6. I'm pretty sure it was an interception, but
he had a big game.
The pick 6 in the state championship in that one.
He had a big game.
We asked Rick Aaron what he likes. Everything you just mentioned, experienced kids are coming back. Of course, being the humble guy that he is, he says that they need to work on their team speed. I don't think Coach Rickles up there has a whole lot of work to do to get them up to speed, maybe to maintain it, but just a riches up there in terms of speed. You saw that on the track this spring. His keys to success, as a lot of coaches would say, right? You stay away from the serious injuries. You take things 1 week at a time. Is it fair? And we're going to talk about Stockton and EPC and a few other teams here. Is it fair to give them? They're the favorites here, right? They're the favorites until someone takes it from them. Is that fair?
I totally agree. And, you talk to any coach across the NUIC and they all state the exact same thing. Lena Winslow is the king until somebody knocks him off. And looking into this season and just looking at raw numbers, which I know some people don't like, but I do. I enjoyed numbers because they speak a story. And right now, we talked about it last year after they got obliterated at state, that even coming back this year, they were going to be the odds-on favorite to get back to Bloomington for the state championship. And you take a look at the preseason ratings, and they're going to open up the ratings. Now, I'm not saying rankings. There is a difference. The ratings, though, have Lena Winslow at number 1 to open up the year. So it just speaks volumes to what they've been able to do and accomplish. And part of that is just because of the amount of experience that they do have returning as well. I mean, those are all factors that get played into the rating systems. And they're going to open up the year almost a 2-score favorite over the entire 1A field. So will that hold? Who knows? We don't know. We have to play the games to find out. Obviously, we're going to talk about some teams coming up that can hopefully put a thorn in their side at some points here within the season, the NUIC. And then, of course, we know that there's teams down south in the Carrolltons, the Camp Point Centrals, the Brown Counties, the Calhouns that are waiting for their opportunity now that they got all these Catholic schools out of their road, that they can get back to prominence. And we've talked about the WIBC. We have a lot of collaboration with the WIBC, and they have been able to put some great teams together over the last decade as well. And they keep reaching the state finals on a more consistent basis. So it's created somewhat of an interconference rivalry, so to speak, because you're not going to see them until the state championship game comes to fruition anyway.
So Lee Win opens up their season Friday, the 29th of August. On the road at Foreston, always a fun game. Certainly, we'll talk about Stockton here in a minute, and maybe we'll look kind of season-wide at the schedule. Week 3, though, every NUIC team has an out-of-conference game. Lee Win is going to be going to Rochelle, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, usually a 4A program? 3A
that's right. And I mean, it's not the first time we've seen Lena Winslow step up into that kind of atmosphere to play teams. We've seen it over the years. Rochelle is definitely a 4A school that will it'll be a big game for them. I'm interested. I think a lot of people are interested to see how that game goes, but I don't have a whole lot of information on Rochelle because they're not part of my coverage area. But last year they were actually in the 5A playoffs and made it to the quarterfinals. So if that gives you a look at what is going to transpire here, I mean, it's going to be a tough game.
Well, it's not like they're not used to playing schools that should be ranked higher than them, right?
Right, exactly.
Let's jump to a team that it has usually been the thorn in Lee Win's side. They've been one of the only teams, if not the only team, to beat them out for a conference championship in the last couple of years. New head coach, a lot of new beginnings at Dupec. They do bring back some good numbers. They bring back 7 players on offense. They bring back 6 players on defense, all seniors. So this is a very, very talented group, a lot of experience in this group, but they're going to have to fill in some holes there. Certainly they have had the good fortune of having a Hoffman at coach and quarterback over the last few years. It'll be the first time that we don't see that on the Riverman sideline. So what does the 2025 outlook here, again, with some experience coming back, what does it look like for the Rivermen in 2025?
Well, I think what Dupec needs to do is, obviously, like you said, they don't have Cooper Hoffman at quarterback anymore, who was a record-setting quarterback, who the previous quarterback before him was his brother Hunter, and Cooper broke all of Hunter's records. You don't have that. So with that, they are going to have to figure out who is going to play quarterback. But I also think that you're going to see a different look out of Dupec just because of personnel. They're going to have to be able to change. And funny thing is, as I was talking to Tyler Hoffman here just a couple days ago, and he talked about it. Like they've never had, everybody has always called Dupec a spread team, which they have been primarily, but they've never had a true home offense. They've always been a team that's able to adapt to the personnel that they have. And so when it comes down to what Dupec will do or what they're going to look like, we're going to see some changes. We could see them lean into a more power run team. I mean, you take a look at some of these guys that they're going to have on the offensive line. Justin Anderson's going to be one of them. Trey Jones comes back. We're talking about what we've talked about with Dupec over the last few years. The O-line's always been their weakest point. This will arguably be the strongest offensive line that they've had in their entire existence as a co-op. These guys have been putting in the work in the weight room. I think that with that, if they can find the right quarterback to manage the offense, you're going to see some things happen in the run game, especially with the likes of Dermot Dolan and Lucas Rosso coming back to help get those yards on the ground and get those tough yards as well.
Yeah, like you mentioned, we've been so used to seeing this team operate in a certain way, a dual threat quarterback, always a stout defense. So I'm really, really intrigued at this team. I again, how do you address that production, I guess is what I want to say. How do you replace that? They do have those numbers, like you mentioned, the Dolans, Justin Anderson. So I think this will be a new look Riverman football team, but I don't expect them to take a step back necessarily. We asked Coach about the strengths, leadership, probably the most complete group of leaders that they've had come through the program. Like we mentioned, everyone that they have coming back on offense and defense is all seniors. So this will be a very senior heavy program. The culture certainly is always tremendous at Dupec. One thing, like we've mentioned, offense identity is one of those things that they really want to try and figure out with Cooper Hoffman graduating amongst a few others. And getting that, like we said, the offensive production back. But if it sounds cliche, right? Control the line of scrimmage, win those first downs on both sides of the ball, you're going to be in a good position to win a lot of ball games. So I don't think they have to reinvent the wheel here. But again, can they take that next step? They've always been kind of right there. How many years have they had one conference loss and it was Lena Winslow? That's what happened last year. Can they take that extra step despite their holes that they'll need to replace here? Looking forward to seeing what Dupec can do. They're going to open up the year with Dakota. That will be at their place on Friday the 29th.
Yeah, it's gonna. This is one of the teams that I'm really intrigued by because this is their last year in the NUIC before they transition into the Big Northern. There's been a lot of talk about, they're a 3A school playing in a 1A conference and all this stuff, but yet they've still managed to be in the 3A quarterfinals each of the last two seasons. They've made it to the second round every year that they've made the playoffs over the last 5 or 6 seasons now. So, and you talk to any football coach and you start to build a program by getting to that second round. I mean, when you get to that second round, you're one of 16 teams remaining, and that gives you 2 additional weeks of practice over any team that did not make the playoffs at all, which is roughly 44% of the playoff field. So you gain that experience and you continue to build and build and build. And, hats off to Tyler Hoffman and the rest of his staff. And Demas has been a part of that staff the entire time. They've built a culture that these guys are buying into and they're believing. And even though Tyler Hoffman is stepping away, Demas is stepping in and pretty much keeping everybody same status quo. So there's not a whole lot of changes there per se. But yes, you're going to see a little bit of a different look, I believe, out of Dupec this year. And they're definitely a question mark, but at the same time, I know that he's hoping that week 9 showdown at Lena Winslow on the turf will be for something big.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned it, a team that's gotten to the second round. Go back to that first round. They played Seneca. Seneca we knew was going to be a tough team. I thought that would be a pretty good challenge for Dupec. They come away with a big win there, and then an even bigger win against the big Northern team in Genoa Kingston, 66-0 in that second round game before defeating Paxton Buckley Loda in the third round and losing to Wilmington to close out last year. As mentioned, this year they open up with Dakota, their non-conference game, a team that they're familiar with and a team that they're going to be real familiar with moving forward in Byron there. That is in week 6, and that will be a home game for Dupec. Should be a blockbuster game that week.
Yeah, that'll be a big game for sure. I mean, we've seen that playoff matchup come over the past couple of years between Dupec and Byron. Always gone Byron's way by a big score. We'll see what this year brings. Byron obviously is still very loaded and expected to be right there at the top of Class 3A, albeit a little bit of a different look to 3A this year with a couple Catholic teams moving up where they probably belong. But, Byron's been used to that. They've had the challenges of playing the IC Catholics and the Lombard Montinis the last 4 or 5 years. And if you take a look back in those matchups, Byron's either A, beat them or B, hung with them the majority of the time. So that says a lot about what Jeff Boyer and his program have done down there at Byron. And they're definitely right here at that top pinnacle of where you want to be standard-wise.
Yep, no doubt about that. Let's talk about a team that has those high standards, but last year, uncharacteristic 2-7 year with Coach Janicki and the Foreston Cardinals. You looked at the games, or you look back at the games that they played. They had a close game against Galena. They played tight with EPC and with Morrison, but they just could not get things going last year. What was last year an anomaly for Foreston, and what has Coach been working on to get this team back to where they expect to be? They got a lot of returning players here in Foreston. I expect that record to get a lot better than what it was last year.
Yes, and I've gotten a lot of grief when I put out the list of top 21A schools to watch. I don't think a lot of people really realized that I was basically going off of the rating system that Cal Preps, old HR Preps, and Max Preps put together. And, I like I said, I get a lot of information. I'm more of a numbers guy. I like to see that. But there's a lot of people who are like, well, you're forgetting a team. You're forgetting about Foreston. And, my comeback was, you can't really put a team that was 2-7 in your top 20 teams to watch. But I will state this about Foreston. They do return a lot of kids. They had a lot of youth last year. I think part of what they had transpire last season was probably a little bit of a lack of senior leadership, to be quite honest. I know that they had a couple injuries, but they just didn't put it all together. They looked like a formidable team that could make a playoff run, but they came up short in big game after big game, and then they got throttled in a couple games where you didn't expect that to happen. And I know that Coach Janicki is definitely looking at getting Foreston back to the playoffs. His goals have not changed. His goals are to compete towards the top of the conference and make a deep playoff run and hoping to compete for that opportunity to play at state. And, it's one of the things I admire about him. You don't take a step back to change everything that you've built to this point. You got to keep building. You're going to have some downfalls here and there. How do you come back and build? And I think they're going to have that this year. They're going to have a more physical defense. He thinks that they'll be better at special teams as well. But like you said, he needs that inexperienced sophomore and junior class to really step up and take in that ownership of being Foreston football. And I think that if they can do that, granted, they got a tough one right out of the gates as they host Lena Winslow. But they have a good schedule in front of them that I think that they can get back into at least that middle of the conference road. And we could see them swing a 2-7 into a 6-3, possible 7-2. It's going to depend on what they want to do and how they do it. But the amount of returning starters they have definitely says that things are looking good for Foreston this year.
Yeah, by my count, 18 returning starters, including 10 on offense. Brady Gill there at quarterback. You got the tri-headed monster at running back of Loomis, Milnes, and Probst, along with some O-line, some tight ends. So, again, the coaches talked about the strength of this team, kind of having that redemption mindset, a resurgence and energy here since the fall season. So, again, this is a team that historically has been too good to kind of stay in that 2-7 level. So, again, with that, 18 starters coming back, that's an enormous number. A lot of those kids playing on both sides of the ball, handful of unproven kids, too, that are new to the roster. So,
well, and out of that group of kids that are unproven, a couple kids I think that you really need to pay attention to are that of Kai Alderks and Connor Polish. Kai, I think, is going to be a junior this year, and Connor's going to be a sophomore. But both those two guys are very well built. They have experience at varsity competition and other sports already under their belts. And I think that their maturation to the varsity game will be a lot faster than what you typically see.
Great. We look forward to seeing that. Like you mentioned, they open up with a tough rival there at Lena Winslow. Then a little bit easier as they play Dakota, Fulton, and Morrison, 3 teams that did not make the playoffs last year before getting into really a meat back into that schedule there. Week 8, they're a non-conference game against the defending 1A semifinalist in Leroy. That'll be a fun matchup there in Week 8 for Forreston before they close out with Stockton on the road. Let's talk about one of those teams that we did see that resurgence from last season. Maybe a surprise to some, but if you know Coach Jared McNutt, you know that this has been in the works. Eastland Pearl City. They go 7-3 last year. They get into the playoffs before they lose in that first round game. Again, one of those teams we talked about that in years past have maybe been on that back half of this conference, but steadily, slowly, over time, putting in the work, getting that right culture fit, and then you saw what happened last year again. 7 wins, getting into the playoffs. What's made that kind of that leap happen for Eastland Pearl City?
Well, I think part of that was just that they had the experience under their belt. I mean, they had quite a few guys that were starters since their freshman year or sophomore year. So you had quite a few 3-year starters, and with that comes that experience. And then on top of that, they've put big strides in the weight room. I mean, you don't ever hear this name very much, but Chris Dirks runs the Eastland athletic program, and he has done a great job of, getting into the same mentality that we've seen out of Lena Winslow and Dupec and Maroa Forsyth and Camp Point Central. He's bringing all that stuff together, working on getting more speed and agility, working on getting more strength. And you're seeing it in EPC. They're starting to get stronger again, much to like what we used to see of them from that 2008 to 2014 seasons. They're getting big. They're getting faster. And with that, you're going to find success. going into this year, they're going to have a hard spot. They don't have a returning quarterback, so now they have to find a quarterback. But what they do have is they still have speed in the backfield with Draven Zier, and then you're going to see a newer kid come on in Brecken Hayden, who did run for over 100 yards against Dakota last year, and he was really he wasn't even a starter all year, but he had a big game in that game against Dakota. We've seen Will Burchin in the past in the backfield. That's not going to happen. They're going to need him on the line. But defensively, with him and Brody Simons and Zy Haverland at linebacker, that is probably one of the most physical linebacking cores we're going to see in the NUIC. So I think what they can do defensively will help them stay in games. They're going to have to find some pieces, which Coach McNutt talks about, in order to get their offense back up to where it was last season.
Yeah, certainly, as you mentioned, not a team that throws a lot, but certainly having a quarterback in there that can navigate this offense. But when you've got guys like Zier and Tegan Dyson, Tegan Dyson there up front on the line, I should say, kind of controlling that up front with the rest of the linemen and that speed with Zier, they've got the tools. And as you mentioned, this will be a team that's really strong up front on the defensive side of the ball. Graduated 3 of their 4 defensive backs. But in this conference, you got to win the line of scrimmage to have a shot. So I think they'll be able to be okay. They're replacing on those defensive backs. We've asked in these coaches forums, we've asked coaches for fun tidbits about their programs. And one thing that I've always liked about Eastland Pearl City is that the first night of full pads, they practice at midnight under the lights. I mean, it's just so cool. It'll be in Lanark this year. The midnight practice will be Friday the 15th. So, Friday at 11:59 going into Saturday the 16th. And so that practice actually starts at midnight on the 16th. What a cool tradition that is.
It is, and it's kind of funny because there's another school right down the road that they call a rival that also does the same thing. The Foreston Cardinals, Keenan Janicki does that too, and it's something that Diddish had started there, and it's cool to see EPC doing it as well. There's, like you said, there's not a lot of schools around here that do that, but I know down in Foreston, it's always been tradition. They get all the dads out with their trucks and turn on the headlights.
Yep.
And I'm not sure how they do it at EPC, but it's very cool. I think it brings a lot of camaraderie to the team, especially as you're going through the suck of it, as you would say, getting ready for the regular season. So very cool stuff. I love it.
EPC opens up on the 29th at home against Fulton. They will go away. They will go on the road to Fenimore, Wisconsin, week 4. Fenimore, that's a team that we normally see on NUIC schedules. Is it not? That name sounds familiar.
We saw them last year. They played Galena, I believe, last year. Yeah, Galena. They played Galena in week 4. So this year, I think there's 2 teams that are playing Fenimore, maybe. I know one is for sure, which is EPC.
Right. We just talked about it.
But I thought they were on.
Well, we'll find it. We'll find it eventually, won't we?
Oh yeah, somewhere. And I could be thinking. I know we got a couple Wisconsin schools on our schedule this year with East Dubuque, Hazel Green, and Benton Scales Mound, which is kind of cool because they're co-op teams that are with co-ops with other NUIC schools. So that'll be interesting.
Yep. So again, the Cougars open up, the Cats, I should say. Sorry, not the Cougars. The Cats open up at home against Fulton on the 29th. Another team that really took that next step up last year and got into the playoffs. And when they did that, we said, this is the team to watch in 1A. That, of course, is Galena. Last year, what they got in at 5-4, right? And that was a team that we thought that this team is going to make noise in this 1A North bracket, and then they did. They had that unbelievable win against Stark County in week 1. They went on to defeat Greg's alma mater, Ottawa Marquette, in round 2 before falling to Leroy, that very, very tough Leroy team there in the 3rd round. But Ed Freed departs after a long tenure there at Galena High School, and now that job goes to Kyle Knight. So what does Kyle Knight bring to the Galena Panthers? Golly, the Galena Panthers, are you kidding me? Galena Pirates.
Well, I don't know a whole lot about Kyle Knight outside of the fact that I do know he was on Ed Freed's staff. As far as what he wants to do, he comes in taking over a program that has a 3-year starter quarterback in Roman Romer. They're going to have a decent receiving core as well. Owen Hafel's another guy who you can also see in that quarterback position. So it's kind of one of those things where you kind of got a QB1, QB1A, so to speak. Granted, we haven't really seen Hafel throw the ball that much like his brother used to, but he's still very much capable of being able to do that. With that, they're going to have quite a few 2- and 3-year starters taking over the program. So he's walking into a pretty good situation, especially when you take a look at his offensive line. He's got returners in Gus Knack, Juan Durantis, and Travis Temperley, all guys that they can build off of. Now you just got to find 2 more pieces to fit into that line. You got Mason Smith back at wide receiver. And like I said, Roman Romer, not only is he the quarterback, he's also Galena's leading rusher returning as well. So he's a dual threat style QB. So I would like to believe that Knight will keep things how Freed had them and kind of be one of those teams that they can go power, they can go spread all at the same time and continue to work within the different personnel angles that they have available. Defensively, I think that's where you're going to see them really stand out the most. Again, Temperley and Durantis back on the defensive line, Knack's at linebacker, but then you got Roman Romer, Hafel, Smith, and Max Schultz all at defensive back, all returning. So granted, they're gonna have some line issues that they need to work around or work through. But I can't see where Galena can't come into this season building off of a 7-5 quarterfinal appearance last season, and even with the new head coach, there's a path for them to get back to the playoffs. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. Well, as you mentioned, with a quarterback like Roman Romer, 2,000 all-purpose yards last year, and a talented, experienced receiving core. I love watching Gus Knack play too. 111 tackles last year. So yeah, this is a team that has all the pieces you want as a first-year head coach. One piece that they don't have, Kyle, is a home field this year. This is now. Let me read this because I don't understand it one bit. Okay, this is directly from Coach Knight. This was in the fun tidbit portion of the form. So we don't have a home field this year as our school is under construction. Chuck Corte Field is currently being turned, and this is where it's confusing, into a lunar landscape due to geothermal wells. And I don't understand one word of that sentence, Kyle. So all of their home games will be in Hazel Green, Wisconsin. They hope to have that brand new field stadium in the fall of 2026. Can you explain to me what's going on in Galena?
From what I understand, they're just resurfacing the entire football field. So they dug up the field, the old cinder track that used to run around the field, the adjacent baseball field where they used to play baseball games. They've dug all that up. I believe, based off of what I've seen in my travels up there this summer, is they're just resurfacing the whole football field. And they might be putting in a track. I don't know. But that's what's going on there. It's part of a big project that they have going on. I know that they're redoing their gym as well. So their high school gymnasium will be a brand new gymnasium this year too. So there's a lot of things that they're doing, but I expect Chuck Cordy Field, when it comes back, that it will still be at least I'm hoping it is, the same intimidating place like any other, like it has been in its history. I've always felt that that field was the most intimidating out of all of the fields within the conference, because as a visitor, the locker rooms are behind the Galena fans. So literally, to get to the field, you have to come out of the locker, walk through the concourse where everybody's trying to get to the concession stands, and literally walk through the Galena fans to get onto the field. So to me, it's the most iconic place in the conference. And just so much history there. You know, I love going to games in Galena. It's a blast.
Well, if you tell anybody that you're playing on a lunar landscape dug up due to geothermal wells, that's going to have some intimidation to it, I think. So, how far is it from Galena to Hazel Green?
It's like 15 minutes.
Okay.
Up Highway 84. So it's not a far drive.
Well, they'll open up their season there in Hazel Green at home against Morrison on the 29th. Then they'll play Benton, Wisconsin as their out of conference game there in week 2. So again, the Galena Pirates, new head coach there, and looking to build off of that great season last year. Team that, like Foreston, did not have a very characteristic year, at least historically speaking, in the last, let's give it a couple decades, really, since I was there, in Morrison. 3-6 last year. They bring back, I said that when we're talking about Lena Winslow, that Alex Schlichting, one of the fastest players in the conference. Morrison might have the top 2 if you go by track speed. But again, the Morrison Mustangs, their head coach Nate Vandermeide back in the NUIC again this year. 3-6 last year. They bring back 6 offensive starters, 4 on defense. 2 of those, again, the aforementioned fastest players probably in the conference. 2 of the fastest track runners in the entire state of Illinois in Brady Anderson and Levi Milder. We talk a lot about speed in this conference. Can you give Morrison the crown on maybe the fastest here? You can. And you know, the old saying is that speed kills, but without an offensive line, that speed don't mean nothing. and I think that's where, you know, coming into the NUIC last year, Morrison had a lot of high hopes, especially coming off of a quarterfinal appearance the year before, including a team that had beat a Princeton team, who was one of the top teams in Class 3A. And they kind of laid an egg. I mean, they opened up really strong against Lena Winslow despite losing that game. It was a very tight game throughout the first 3 quarters of the game before Lena Winslow was able to start putting it on a little bit. But, you know, when you take a look at Morrison last year, I felt like they battled through injuries, but I felt like they underperformed a bit. Either that or they were just overhyped. I don't know. And I know that I'm part responsible for possibly hyping them up, simply because I felt that with the amount of starters that they returned and coming into the NUIC with the experience that they had, that they would be able to be better than a 3-6 team. And you know, even preseason rankings, I mean, everybody across the state, not just us, had Morrison ranked in the top 10 to start the year. And yeah, some of that was based off of what they did the year before, but a lot of it was because of who they returned from that team. And like you said, because of the team speed that they had. I mean, let's not forget that they also had Rylan Alvarado on that team, another guy who is a state track guy who is now moving on to Newman. But you know, they definitely have that speed, and yes, you can definitely say they have the fastest backfield probably in the state of Illinois, to be honest. Yeah. But the keys are, can they run up the middle? And can they get to the outside? Because if they can't do that, we're going to find out real quick where Morrison falls. Yeah, talking to Coach Nate, obviously that team speed is going to be their number one strength. Multiple players from that state championship team that they just had in the spring there. But they got to get better on offense. They got to be more efficient. defense as a whole was not a strength of theirs last year. A lot of self-inflicted wounds for the Mustangs. So, again, we just talked about Foreston having an off year. Maybe it's one of those growing pains for Morrison here in the NUIC, but also it could be they're not going to be the only team that could be low on numbers this year. One of the things that a lot of small school, communities can go through from time to time. So fully expect the Mustangs to be fast on the field and, again, to compete with this conference. They open up the year, as we just mentioned, at Galena, and their out-of-conference game is Week 9, the unofficial View from the West Bowl of Morrison and Ottawa Marquette. Morrison will host that game in Week 9. Could be a playoff game on the line there in Morrison that week for either team. So this should be an exciting year. Always fun when we get two alma maters playing each other, isn't it, Kyle?
Oh, absolutely.
Morrison, of course, got wins last year. They beat Galesburg, which was a big surprise at that time. And then they defeated Foreston and Dakota as well.
Oh, Dakota.
Let's kick it on down. I've got a team in mind. We got two teams left already. We're flying through this, Kyle.
We're hammering it.
Let's start. I don't want to spend a whole lot of time here. We've talked about this. There's tough times in Dakota right now, and we don't want to speculate on anything about what's going on or what's going to happen with their year. We just talked about it with Morrison with, sometimes these smaller communities can have down years, down numbers, not a lot of interest in football. That seems to be a growing trend in football in general, right? So we are not sure at this moment what Dakota is going to bring back. Last year, certainly, if you look at their record, you saw kind of remnants of that. An 0-9 year, did not have a lot of points on the board. You hate to see that as a football fan, certainly with a community like Dakota, tradition rich in a lot of different sports. But again, they are not unique in the fact that sometimes teams can go through a little bit of a lull. Things have to reset a little bit. So again, don't want to speculate or talk too much into it. There could be more news on the horizon for Dakota as we get closer to the season, Kyle.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think we're going to know some answers here within the next week of what Dakota will be doing. Obviously, there is a public post put out that they're hoping that when they get to football camp next week that they'll have 25 kids show up for camp. If they don't get that number, there's going to be talks of the potential of canceling the season. I know I've had quite a few athletic directors and other head coaches reach out about the situation as well as they're trying to plan or pre-plan the vacant weeks if that were to come to that cause. And it's tough. I mean, myself, a Dakota alum, it was a proud place to be. And right now it's definitely fallen on some tough times, and it's hard to stomach right now. And I think that the Dakota community feels the same way.
Yeah. So again, we hope for the best there in Dakota, and we will wait and see what the next couple weeks really bring out here. Now we're down to two teams, Kyle. I want to save the one for last, and you can probably guess which one I'm going to save for last. Let's go to Fulton. Head coach Pat Lower. I had a great interview with him. I'm sure you listened to that. I had a great coaching conversation with Coach Lower this year. Another team that, again, last year did not have a record that was up to the Steamer standard. They were 4-5, just missed out on a playoff spot. They got a lot coming back. What does Fulton need to do, Kyle, to get past that 4-5 mark this year? And if it's just one more win, maybe if they get to a 6-3, what would have to happen here?
Well, they got to get more consistent in their play. I think that's one of the things that you saw with them last season. They had that opening week 1 win over Foreston, which was a big win. You thought it was going to lead to good things. You knew going into week 2 it'd be a struggle with Lena Winslow. And I think the one that really got everybody caught by surprise was the EPC game in week 3, where they basically got ran off the road. And then they followed that up with another tough loss to Stockton, another team that since they've joined the NUIC, they've had a good run against Stockton. But when you open up the season 1-3, that starts to put a little bit of a bad look on your team. And then they had another down performance against a Galena team that I felt that they were more equipped to play against than what had transpired. And I think part of it is, they got down early. I know they got hurt as well. And then just basically it became a snowball effect really for them. But they did close out the year on a high note. They got the big win over Knoxville. They got the wooden shoe game with that big win over Morrison. So that definitely put some energy back into the program to, yes, you're ending the season, you're not making the playoffs, but we got something to build. And I think that's where Coach Lower is looking at right here. He's got a lot of dudes coming back. I was actually very impressed with how many starters he has returning. And then on top of that, you have Landon Liu, who was one of the kids that got injured last year, and he's coming back, which will be big both offensively and defensively for the Steamers as well.
Yeah, certainly one of their top names coming back. Braden Myers kind of stepped into that quarterback role alongside Dom Kramer last season and really, really can sling the ball. Tremendous athlete in multiple sports. Who else should we be looking out for this year for the Steamers?
Well, I think another one that you're going to want to watch is Mason Keeble at the running back position. Likewise, he'll be on the defensive line, so he's going to bring a good big body build to their offense and hopefully get those tough yards. Jonah Lutz will definitely get more into the ball game. He's sitting right around 350 career rushing yards under his belt. So, those two will definitely be the two that you're looking to build upon. Offensive line wise, you got Landon Bootstra and Cody Skipper back. Those two guys have some good experience under their belts as well. With that, you have Wyatt Becker also returning on the offensive line. So there again, you got three key pieces on that offensive line back. Now you just got to find those two other fill holes that can help you. Hopefully they can find some pulling guards that will help open up their play action pass along with their trap game that they like to run. And then they can get out there and spread it out as well where they can be multi-dimensional. And, having Braden Myers at quarterback, being thrusted into that position when Dom Kramer went down and the games that he was able to pick up and really help spark the team to a 3-2 finish down the stretch and some great performances will be something that they can definitely build on there. And then let's not forget that you got Eddie Quinage at kicker. So once again, they have another Quinage at kicker. And, that kicking game proves to be vital. And perhaps Eddie can have some of the performances like his brother had and be able to win them some games when it comes down the line.
Yep, absolutely. Fulton, a tough stretch here to start. They open up at EPC. They host Dupec. They go on the road to Foreston. They host Stockton, and then they're away at Lena Winslow. So that first 5 weeks of the year, boy, that is a tough gauntlet to start with. And again, you look at the teams they lost to last year, it's basically the teams I just mentioned: Lena Winslow, EPC, Stockton, Galena, and Dupec. So again, if you're going to find wins there, it's almost like you're robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? If someone's going to win, someone's got to lose. And that's where you see this kind of middle of the pack in this conference. Just kind of you see those shifts from year to year. So Fulton's going to be trying to make that leap like EPC and Galena did last year.
Yeah, they're definitely going to come out of that gauntlet with 3 wins.
Right. Okay, Kyle. We've saved what I think could be one of the best in 1A football, and they could be the top dog in this conference. They could be the team that has the most legitimate shot at taking down Lena Winslow this year. Not to put too much pressure on them, but I think there's plenty of people that have that mindset and putting it on the Stockton Blackhawks and head coach Sean Downey. 6-3 a year ago. They went 1-1 in the playoffs, getting there to the second round before falling to Lena Winslow. in the 1A North playoffs. This is a team that brings back, again, 18, 19 different starters on offense and defense, depending on the package that they have in there. We thought that this was a team last year that was going to make strides, and they had underclassmen, they had juniors, and now this year, here they are. Is Stockton the favorite to upset Lena Winslow in 2025?
Yes, I believe they are. Will it happen? We'll find out before long. But like you said, you bring back a three-headed monster and Mark Detweiler, Jack Menson Dyke, and Carter Blair. Those three alone have rushed for over 3,000 yards and have combined for 42 rushing touchdowns. So they definitely have that. And one of the things I like about Stockton, and if you take a look, they're one of the few teams, and I've said this before, that are not afraid of Lena Winslow. They actually pride themselves on wanting to play Lena Winslow and then giving them that challenge. And I think a lot of that sparks from because you take a look at their wrestling co-op, and it's a lot of Stockton kids in that wrestling co-op. So they know what they're going up against. They know the physicality that they need to play with. You add in to the fact that you got Randy Ashe there running their former state champion head coach, Randy Ashe. Let me preface it that way. Running their weight room program on top of that. It is amazing the amount of strides these kids have had over the last 3 years. And here they are entering their senior year. And I mean, we've always talked about, Lena Winslow looking like a bunch of men among boys. Stockton's starting to look the same part. And it's impressive what they've been able to do. And, you take a look at that offensive line, you got two state championship caliber wrestlers on that offensive line in Jeremiah Luke and Oliver McPeak. You add a couple others like Eli Larson at tight end. Yes, Stockton is right there as a big team to watch. And, at the beginning of the show, you wanted me to talk about, potentially 3 areas to watch. This is one of them. Stockton is going to be a team that a lot of people around the state are going to hear about, I think, this year. And, going back to that rating system where I said Lena Winslow was the number 1 rated team, Stockton comes in rated number 2 right behind conference rival Lena Winslow. So that is going to be huge. Now, can Stockton play up to that? They're going to have to like you said, get out of the gates. They have a good game against Benton Scales Mount Shalsburg, a team that they pounded last year. That's who they open up with before they head to Lena Winslow for that week 2 game and showdown there. So it's going to be a fun one for sure.
Yeah, and that's, again, you look forward to that week 2 game, but it's also unfortunate that it might be that early in the year. But hey, what can you do? Every game in the NUIC is going to be tough every week. But again, looking back at those names that we all just mentioned, Jeremiah Luke, first team all conference, he's back. Mark Detweiler, back. Eli Larson, Noah Larson, Carter Blair, Mason Henderson, Aiden Larson. Just it goes and goes and goes. The list of returning players they have back that are bringing all conference accolades with them. In talking to Coach Downey, it's one of the deeper teams he's ever been around. Extremely hard workers. They love to grind, experienced, physical, like you mentioned, all the things. Very good buy-in in the offseason in the strength and conditioning room. So if there's any team that is equipped from a personnel standpoint and maybe kind of what I just talked about, it looks to be this Stockton Blackhawks team. Coach wants to see consistency from his group. And again, need to be physical to win this conference. One of my favorite tidbits, and this kind of goes alongside with a lot of things we talk about on this show and with the programs that we cover. Stockton is one of the smallest remaining schools playing 11-man football. And their numbers will be pushing 50, okay? Put that number on top of the math equation, 50 in their football program. Last year's enrollment at Stockton was 157. 1/3 of Stockton High School was playing football. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's the history, man. I mean, I know a lot of people from Stockton, and that's always been a thing. You're not a Stockton boy unless you're playing football, and they take great pride in that. And it doesn't matter how small the enrollment's got. If you're a boy in Stockton, you better be prepared to play football because that's what's going to happen. And not saying that they don't have kids that don't play football, but obviously, like you said, a good portion of their student body that are boys go out for football. And it's something that is just special within that school. I mean, you've had many years where they've had down years even, but the numbers were always there. And it's just, it's a point of pride for Stockton that if you go to Stockton High School, you wear the black and gold or yellow, whatever, or maroon and gold. I mean, sorry, not black and gold, maroon and gold. And, you got that spear on your helmet and you're a part of that team. And, I don't know. There's a reason why they're the winningest team in NUIC history. Obviously, they have a long history with it that is very special. Let's just put it that way.
Yep. Need to find me a Stockton football shirt for the year. Really excited for the Blackhawks in 2025. Certainly a lot of expectations coming at them from multiple different ways, but their personnel, their coaching staff, their tradition there at Stockton is well equipped to handle that. So that is 11-man in a nutshell. I did ask you at the beginning before we started to record on the 3 storylines you're looking to watch. Stockton is one. Give me storyline number 2.
Foreston at 2-7 last year, like we talked about. Do they have enough to bring them back up from being in the cellar back into playoff prominence? I think they do, but we got to see it on the field. I think that they weren't on my top 20 team list to watch, I think that they're definitely a team to pay attention to, because I think that they are that team that can take that 2-7 and turn it into a playoff team. The other one.
What's your third and final one?
It's a combination of both Dupec and Galena having new head coaches. We have 2 teams that made quarterfinal appearances last year, going through new head coaching regimes. Can they stay the course on what they're doing? And can they get back to where they were a season ago? And that they both have a great group of returning players that can help them. Can they get the other pieces that they need to fill the holes that they've lost to be able to sustain that?
Yeah, the year in and year out, this conference has no shortage of storylines. This year is no different. If not, maybe some more excitement again with the emergence of Stockton, the returning players that teams like EPC and Galena have coming back. And again, like you mentioned, the Forestons, the Morrisons, the Fultons, teams that didn't have a great year last year, maybe they can be that team that gets into that 5-win mark. So, this, just as we've talked about it now for about an hour, couldn't be more excited for the NUIC football season to start. Again, we're just over what you said, 39 days or something like that left before we kick off in week 1. Give me your top game of the year. You can't say week 2. Lena Winslow stop.
Come on, Mitch.
That's the easy one. That's everyone's. Give me another one to look out for. That maybe think of it this way. Maybe another game that could potentially have implications on maybe not who wins the conference. Maybe it's a playoff spot. Maybe it's getting that second, third spot.
Okay. I got you. Can I give you multiples? There's a couple I'm looking at. The first one I'm looking at is in week 6.
Okay.
Foreston at EPC I think that will be a big game there. Fulton's got a tough schedule. They got to really their big game is opening night. They got to open up big against EPC. I think if they can do that, then we can talk about them in a potential playoff run. Another big one that I like is week 9. I mean, Lena Winslow, Dupec. Could that be another showdown for a potential conference title? Barring the fact that Dupec would have to beat Stockton prior to that to make that happen. I think that will be. I think those are some big showcase games outside of the. I'm going to say it, Mitch. The week 2 game, Lena Winslow Stockton, right now on calendars. That is the big game of the year at this moment. But I think Dupec could be right there in that mix still. And I'm interested to see what EPC Foreston do, because that could be that big game that can tell you who's going to make the playoffs and who's going to be sitting at home.
Yeah, I'll go to week 3. That's Fulton going to Foreston. If one of those 2 teams or both of those 2 teams are going to make that jump into the playoffs, maybe it'll only be one of them, and maybe it's decided there at that week 3 game. So outside of Lee Wynn and Stockton in week 2, I'll go the next week. Fulton going to Foreston.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, that is another big one there, no doubt about it.
They're all big every week, right? Here in the NUIC.
Well, I mean, realistically, you can usually tell who the cream of the crop is before the crop rises. But like you said, you always get those surprises, and last year was a surprise year. And we saw perennial playoff teams in Fulton and Foreston sitting at home. And I mean, even Morrison, like we said, coming off of a quarterfinal round the year before. And all 3 of those teams were sitting at home, replaced by Galena and EPC. And it's different, man. It's just different. That's the joy of being in this conference, is we know it's tough, and you gotta want to be in that game every Friday night. If you don't want to be there, you're gonna get shellacked, and there's no coming back from it.
Right? Yeah, you got to bring it every single week. Well, there you have it. There's an hour of NUIC football preview. Certainly won't be the only time that you could get an NUIC preview. You'll have an episode of yourself coming up here in a couple weeks. You said closer to the start of the year.
Yeah, so I will be doing my preview shows. They'll be releasing on August 14th for the NUIC and August 21st for 8-man football. So we'll be more closer to
if this hour wasn't enough for you, more coming to you towards the start of the season. So that's our 11-man preview of the NUIC. Let's take a quick break, and we'll come right back with our preview of 8-man in 2025.
This episode of View from the West podcast is brought to you by Simulation Sports. In addition to golf simulators and batting cages, Simulation Sports provides golf club repair, custom fittings for driver shafts, and even private lessons for golf, baseball, and softball. Whether you're looking for a fun group activity or want to fine-tune your skills and equipment, Simulation Sports has something for everyone. Visit their facility at 400 South Main Street in Monmouth, Illinois, or go to thesimulationsports.com to start playing today.
Shouldn't financial advice focus on you? I can help you plan for your financial future, from protection to saving to retirement. I'm Nate Neighbor, your Modern Woodman representative. Call me at 309-233-2656 or find me on the Modern Woodman website.
Get to know your local Modern Woodman representative to plan for your financial future and learn about valuable member benefits. Modern Woodman of America. Touching lives, securing futures. Securities offered through NWA Financial Services, Inc., a wholly owned subsidiary of Modern Woodman of America.
The View from the West Player of the Week is brought to you by Breedlove Sporting Goods, Western Illinois' premier sporting goods store for uniforms, apparel, equipment, awards, and online team stores. They offer name brands such as Adidas, Under Armour, and Nike, and are extremely responsive with any inquiries. With a primary focus on the western side of the state of Illinois, Breedlove Sporting Goods is the fastest way to outfit your team. You can check them out on Facebook or at breedlovesports.com, or shoot Cal Breedlove an email at calbreedlove@gmail.com.
This is Dan Pearson of Fellowship of Christian Athletes. Our FCA team of staff, board, and volunteers is pleased to support View from the West with Greg and Mitch. Our Northwest Illinois FCA team is 3 teams in 1, serving coaches and athletes in the Three Rivers, Northern Illinois, and Greater Peoria areas, all with schools covered by View from the West. For more information, email me at danpearson@fca.org. FCA, the heart and soul in sports.
Hey, this is Brett Bielma, the head coach of the Fighting Illini from Prophetstown, Illinois. You're listening to the View from the West podcast.
Welcome back to View from the West podcast. Kyle is still here after about an hour and a half now, but we are back to talk about 8-man football. And again, I mentioned it in the top of the show. The leading expert in 8-man, standing or virtually standing with me tonight, is Kyle Kampmier. Always exciting in 8-man football. Certainly we've seen a lot of success in the NUIC in 8-man. We got some new teams this year. I think there's opportunity for maybe a new state champion this year. So what's, again, I said at the beginning of the 11-man, kind of give me the snapshot from 30,000 feet. If anyone's new to 8-man, if anyone's new to the NUIC 8-man, what's the view from up high in 8-man football?
Well, kind of one of those things like we saw the NUIC when we saw a bunch of teams leave the NUIC and move into 8-man football. With it, we also saw success follow. We've watched Polo win back-to-back state titles, Amboys coming off of back-to-back state titles along with 3 consecutive appearances. We've seen Milledgeville at state just a season ago. We've seen Orangeville at state playing Polo a few years ago. We've watched River Ridge get to the semifinals in their first year of 8-man football. We also watched them during the COVID spring season, which would have potentially been a state championship caliber team that year, go undefeated. Unfortunately, no playoffs in that season. So when it comes to 8-man football, just like 11-man football, the NUIC regime rings very strong among the contingent of the teams and the games. And, you hear a lot about it around the state, especially because with 8-man football, there's definitely a lot more involvement around the state with the amount of travel between games and things like that. And, that's one of the biggest complaints. Why is everybody talking about the northwest corner of the state? Well, the titles kind of prove that.
Yep. No doubt about it. Like you mentioned, a team that we've seen success from in the past couple years. A team traditionally in the past has been an 11-man program, but they've found immediate success in 8-man. And that's the Amboy Clippers, as you mentioned, the defending state champions. They're going to look a bit different this year. You don't see the same names that we've seen the last couple of years. What can you tell us about the Clippers, and what kind of what are they looking at from an outlook perspective? Again, because it seems like even though they're the defending champs, they've got a lot of production that they've got to replace.
They do. And, talking with Coach Payne, he feels that his favorite to win their said division, which is they still considered the West Division. Anyway, he feels that, Ridgewood or West Central are going to be in that mix. But at the same token, when you talk to other coaches around the state, they still say Amboy's the team to beat. And until somebody knocks them off the throne, they're the team everybody's after. And you got to respect that. Like you said, they've won back-to-back state titles. They've been there 3 years in a row. And since they joined 8-man football in 2021, they've never fallen short of the semifinals either. So, they've pretty much have taken a program that was failing at 11-man football, getting short on numbers. We're able to move them into 8-man football, turn them into a powerhouse relatively quick, And now they're getting a lot more participation. As far as this season, though, they definitely it's definitely going to be a different look to Amboy. But I think, despite the fact that we don't have a lot of known names, you're going to see names become known names or household names as the season goes on, because I believe that the program that they've instilled in themselves has produced some hidden gems that we just don't know about yet, and we might get more availability to that as the season goes on.
Yeah, certainly one of those returning players is Evan Flanagan, two-way player for the Clippers. You saw his name flash on both sides of the ball last year. You've got Ryan McNick coming back as a tight end, Trevor Stenzel there in the offensive line. Coach Payne said this team is going to be really strong up front on the offensive line, as they have been in years past, and team speed, another thing, especially in 8-man football. If you've got team speed, you've got a leg up on the competition for sure. Want to get a little bit better at defending the pass here. But like any style of football, if you're running the ball, setting up the play action, stopping the run on defense, that's going to, pay dividends in the end. So while Amboy has a lot of that production to replace, this is a program with a lot of culture, a great coach. Certainly as you mentioned, the numbers have increased, participation is up. So it sounds like it's just an opportunity for someone to step up and become a household name. And so for the Clippers to win yet another state title, we might be seeing some fresh faces here.
Yeah, for sure.
Team that beat. Yep.
Sorry.
Go ahead. No, you're fine. I was just going to pivot to a team that did beat them in the regular season last year. That might look a little bit different from a head coaching perspective, but they do have a lot of production back. And that's the Ridgewood Spartans. We're going to see Wes Sandberg back. We're going to see Gavin Franks back. Tyler Bethel's back on the defensive line. This is a team that I look to right away as a team that could be that group that gets back to Monmouth College in a state championship game.
Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that at all. I mean, like you said, you have a new head coach here in Dawson Anderson, very familiar with Ridgewood and what they've done. Like you said, with Gavin Franks and Wes Sandberg coming back, while they weren't the main guys to the offense, Gavin Franks did have some big games for Ridgewood last season. Most notably, the game that they did beat Amboy in was a huge game for him. Wes Sandberg was more of a secondary back behind his older brother, Roy. But you add in the mix of Cam Stiles as a third option. Now you're off and running again with that proverbial three-headed monster. And yes, they're going to have to fill some other roles and need some guys to step up. But I feel that they're going to be right there in the mix. Taking a look at like the preseason top 10 teams to watch, Ridgewood's one of those teams. And, as we've seen over the last couple of years, if you're within the top 8 teams, you're going to be a team that's going to be watched and looked at as being a potential front runner for the opportunity to play at Monmouth.
Yep. Solid numbers here at Ridgewood, program numbers in the 40s. So should have plenty of competition, plenty of depth here for the 8-man season. As again, Ridgewood been traditionally one of those teams that we see make a deep run and have a lot of success. And with the names that we mentioned, especially with Sandberg, he might be the most exciting player we cover here this season at 8-man. Having him and Franks coming back, I expect the Ridgewood Spartans to make a nice run here this year. I want to go to Orangeville next because you talk about good backs. Hayden Schofield is one that is usually at the top of that list. Am I right there?
Yes. And actually, I was taking a look at Mr. Schofield earlier today because I was just interested in just his performance and production, because he's only going to be a junior. And he already sits 12th all time in I8FA history and rushing yards with 2,473 rushing yards. He also sits on 33 rushing touchdowns and he still has 2 seasons to go. So he is probably the most elite running back coming back into I8FA play this season alone.
Yeah, over 1,900 yards last year as a sophomore. Orangeville didn't have a great year at 4-5, but they've got, like Ridgewood, they've got a lot of numbers. They've got a lot of returning starters coming back. And in addition to Hayden, you've got Oscar Baselli at running back. You've got Brock Cumproud at wide receiver, Nathan Briggs and Braden Laurent there up front. Of course, a lot of those guys are playing on both sides of the ball. This is a team that's going to be fast. It's going to be a team that's going to be athletic. Young players, but again, you have that group of players and one of the best players in Hayden Schofield coming back. This could be a team that I think does a lot better than last year when they were 4-5.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that, well, one, you have a new head coach in Todd Kramer, and Todd Kramer used to be the head coach at Ackwen. So his career record at Ackwen was like 48-16, never missed the playoffs. Now he's taken over an Orangeville team that was low on numbers, low on productivity, didn't play with a lot of fire, and he's instilling that into them. And then on top of that, you have arguably the best running back in the state on your squad. You have some good pieces around him. What I really like is in the newcomers list, you have a couple guys here. All 3 of them are going to be huge additions to the Broncos, and Caden Pfeiffer, Jackson Grillo, and Xavion McLean. All of them have different levels of talent that they can bring, athleticism on top of that. I'm really interested to see how they can mix in with Schofield and Bissell and Comprood. And then who else can they get to be on that offensive line with Briggs and Laurent that is going to, which could be Blake Comprood. He did play on the line last year. So there is that other key piece. But who else can they get to really make Orangeville become a top-tier team once again where they've been in years past? The thing is Orangeville, unlike a lot of these teams that we're seeing have success in 8-man and they're upwards towards the mid to high 30s and getting into that 40s type of output for kids going out, Orangeville is going to be sitting around 20 kids. So not only are they one of the smallest schools in 8-man, they're also going to be one of the teams with the fewest amount of players. And we're talking about a team that could go from being outside the top 15 last year to being a team that could be competing for a playoff spot or into the playoffs, especially with the new coaching staff on board.
Yep, no doubt about that. A team that we will see, again, have a lot of new faces that are going to have to replace a lot of production. One of our favorite players to cover last year in Gus Mumford, that's Polo. I think that's a team that should be good on both sides of the ball up front, but they really have to replace a lot of production from last season and maybe find some consistency with these new faces. What do we know about Polo going into 2025?
Well, that's just it. They're going to be a team that has a good mix of juniors and seniors, but they're also going to be a bunch of guys that have not had a lot of playing time outside of mop-up duty time. So up front, they should be pretty good. I mean, you return Wyatt Plockno, who was their big defensive tackle, strong guard for them last year. He's back in the mix. I'll provide them some stuff there. But yeah, they're going to have to rely on a couple guys. Mercer Mumford will have to step up in some roles. Damon Rowe's going to have to step up both offensively and defensively. And then Corbin Kavanaugh as well. And I mean, and the funny thing is these are all Polo names that we've heard of yet in yesteryear. But can they do it? A kid that I'm really excited about potentially getting out there is that of Jordan Reed. He doesn't have a whole lot of production behind him, but when he does, he's popping off runs at like 16 yards a carry. We'll see if that can transition into anything further. But, I feel, much like Amboy, while Polo doesn't have a lot of household names, they're a program that has never not reached the semifinals. They've been in the state championship game. They have the same coaching staff with Coach Alston and his staff. I've always dubbed Coach Alston the godfather of 8-man football, and some have added Milford Cisna Park's Clint Schwartz into that conversation as well, as he was one of the inaugural coaches in 8-man, with Austin coming at the year after that with Polo. But you take a look at success in 8-man football, and Polo is one of those teams that are up at the top that you're talking about. And similar Amboy, like I said, you don't see a lot on paper right now, but I think we're going to see some things once the games get played.
Yep. What else are we looking at in the NUIC here, Kyle? What about teams like, let's say Milledgeville or West Carroll? We saw Milledgeville program last year put up over 500 points. They scored over 70, I think, 4 or 5 times this year. West Central, not West Central, we'll talk about them in a second, but West Carroll found some success last year at 8-man football. What are we looking at for an outlook for those two programs?
Well, let's start with Milledgeville. I mean, Milledgeville finally got the monkey off their back, right? And were able to get past the quarterfinals for the first time. And they made it all the way to state, where they eventually lost to another NUIC team in Amboy. They returned quite a bit. You got Connor Johnson returning, who is one of the leading receivers for Milledgeville. He's also going to enter as the leading rusher coming back for Milledgeville. Spencer Nye's back. Jaden Promenschenkel's back. Carter Livingood. So they have running backs, and they have receiver threats. They also have 2 different quarterbacks. You saw Evan Schenk go down with a torn labrum last year. Freshman Kyson Francis stepped in, did a great job there. So that's one of the things that you have to have in 8-man, and you have to have a decent QB that can at least facilitate your offense. Milledgeville has 2 of them.
Yep.
So now it's just finding the other pieces that can mix in around them. As for West Carroll, they were the surprise team last year. They jumped out to a 7-2 record. They got that first-round playoff win before losing in the quarterfinal. So they made a quarterfinal appearance. And you take a look at what they have. They have a lot coming back, or at least quite a bit of good players coming back anyway, with Winter Harrington at quarterback. Roger LeBourne is at wide receiver. Both those two I'm pretty sure they've been 4-year players for West Carroll at the varsity level. Well, 3 years, but really 4, because they had that 1 year where they had to sit out. Aiden Buchholz, and then Riker Budamelia. And then on top of that, you add in Johnner Smith and Aiden Larry, Jack McIntyre. They're going to have a good group of kids that I think a lot of people are looking at West Carroll as being one of those teams that might be able to up that game and close the gap on division favorites in Milledgeville and Polo, and really start to make a name for themselves as they get into year 2 of I8FA football.
Yep. Yeah, like you said, a surprise last year, a welcome surprise after having some struggles there in 11-man. So good to see West Carroll making strides here. You mentioned a lot of names there with Milledgeville. If they can play and put up the numbers like they did last year, where maybe there's an opportunity that Amboy's not, the same Amboy team, and maybe Amboy will be. I look at that Milledgeville roster, what they have back, team like Ridgewood. I think this year 8-man will be a little bit more wide open than maybe it has been, where it was a foregone conclusion that Amboy was going to be the champion the last couple of years. I think this year we have a little bit more opportunity for some teams to kind of make that next step up and maybe have another I8FA champion this year. Looking in the West, you've got Amboy, BPC, Flanagan, Galva, Peoria Heights, Ridgewood, West Prairie, West Central. Any teams there that are going to stand out outside of the teams that we mentioned in Amboy, Ridgewood?
Well, I mean, last year we watched West Central come out, and they started 5-0 before they lost a game. And they were a relatively young team last year. Unfortunately, offensively, though, they lost 6 of their 8 starters. But with that, they're going to have Graham Kelly at running back, Keaton Rubush on the offensive line, and then they're going to have to find 6 guys to fill those holes. But in talking to Coach Kirby, he was very excited for the 6 guys that he's going to have fill those roles, which, we'll probably see the likes of Colt Spence and Aiden Gardner, Brian Root be part of that group of kids that make that. What he was even more excited about was being able to see Graham Kelly on the defensive side of the ball too at linebacker. So, and then with that, you have 2 linemen there that are coming back in Keaton Rubush and Jordan Kane. And then you add Cody Wade in the linebacker role as well. So it's just trying for Coach Kirby, it's just trying to find the right group of kids that he wants to fill the roles. Like I said, he feels that the Heat will definitely be very much in the mix of things, or at least he hopes so. His favorite to win the division is Amboy, and much like you heard before, until you knock them off, they're the king sort of thing. But I think that they'll be definitely in the mix in that West Division with Amboy, with Ridgewood. BPC and West Prairie have been 2 teams that have been right there in that playoff mix, but they're always in that lower quadrant of teams. I think that, West Prairie last year missed out on the playoffs. I thought that they would be a better team than what they were. BPC, they also missed. I thought that they would be better than they were as well. Unfortunately, I've not been able to receive anything back from Coach Sisler or Coach McCormick on what they have. And they're both coming off of 3 and 6 seasons. Can they be competitive? I think they can be. It'll just be very interesting to see. Peoria Heights, I know Coach Parker has put some things together. He's trying to get them back up and operational. But he's trying to work on that next man up mentality. They have a good sized senior class that have played together. They need to be more consistent week to week. But when you take a look at his returning players, I mean, he's got 6 returning starters on both sides of the ball. So, like he said, that experience there will prove a lot. You got Gabe Shaver at quarterback, Henry Hansen at running back, Ishmael Burton at wide receiver, and then a couple guys there on the offensive line, and Crew Shaver and Tim Lyon. Defensively, Henry Hansen and Burton at linebacker, Crew Shaver on the defensive line, along with Tim Lyon as well. So while you hear a lot of the same names, they're going to have to find some depth too, and I don't know if they're necessarily going to have that. So it'll be interesting to see. Maybe they can improve upon that 2-7 record they had last year. You would think that they could with the players that they have returning, but they definitely need to gel that and come together more as a team.
I want to move to the Northwest Division. We've talked about Milledgeville and Orangeville, Polo, West Carroll. You add in River Ridge and AFC. I'll put the target on Milledgeville's back as maybe the favorite in that division, but is there a contender there that we either haven't talked about or that you see?
I think like you said, Milledgeville to me stands out as the favorite. I mean, they were the runner-up at state last year. They've lost some key pieces, but they return a lot of key pieces. They still have a good group of team speed. Defensively, they fly to the ball. I mean, I thought that they would have given Amboy a better game at the state game than what they did, just with how fast they fly to the ball. It's one of the things Coach Roble prides himself on is a quick flowing defense. And I think that you're going to see that out of the Missiles once again, especially, Spencer Nye sitting at linebacker. You got Connor Johnson as a defensive back. You have Carter Livingood at a defensive end position. Now it's just finding the other key pieces to build around that. Like I said, Polo and West Carroll are definitely going to be the threats. I think we can see a surprise out of Orangeville. I'm not too sure. River Ridge lost a lot, and I don't know how well they're going to jump back. Caden Bauer is the kid that stands out there as their most experienced returning player at running back and / receiver. It'll be interesting to see what Coach Burlog does. Another team with a new head coach is Doug Nicholas has stepped down from his position. His assistant, Jared Burlog, takes over. Still has Josh Reese on staff as well. I'm assuming there will be some other guys involved with the program. But, you got to build through some things. I know they've been excited with their weight room performance. It's something that they're trying to get more up to par with where it needs to be for a high school program. And they've been excited with the performance that they've seen there. Will it translate to the field? We'll find out soon enough. But could River Ridge get back into the mix? Hoping so. I mean, it's always fun to see area teams be good. They were 3-6 last season without much hope. And maybe this year they can do a little bit more, but right now it's going to be tough. I mean, they got some tough games. When you take a look at it, they open up the season with Ridgewood. They have Orangeville in there, West Carroll, Milledgeville, all in back-to-back weeks 3 through 5. Then they have Polo coming in week 7. So they're going to have to steal one of those wins in order to find themselves back in the playoffs. They definitely have what could be potentially 4 wins on their schedule, but they got to find that 5th win, to guarantee a spot back in the field.
Yep. Well, in my head, Kyle, I thought we could do this in under 2 hours. We've got about 10 minutes of leeway here, so I want to open it up to the rest of the state here in 8-man. We've seen teams like St. Anne or St. Thomas More, Pawnee, Martinsville's been good in the past. Who else, MCP, throw them in there too, who outside that we haven't talked to could make a run to Monmouth this year?
I think a team that stands out, I don't know if they'll necessarily make a run to Monmouth per se, but they have the capability of being a team that could, is South Fork. The Ponies return a lot. They have Ian Dial back at running back. They have Brody Lush, who is one of the all-time receiving leaders in I8FA already, coming back. Jude Walker at tight end is back. And then they return 3 offensive linemen plus their tight end. And then likewise, those guys all double back as defensive linemen on the other side of the ball. So I think that experience-wise, South Fork can definitely become a big contender. I have not seen much information, but I think Metro East Lutheran will definitely be way more improved as a team that can get up. I was trying to reach out to Coach Cook down there and haven't received any responses from him yet, but I think that they can be a player. Martinsville was in the quarterfinals again last season. They always seem to be far. Another small team like Orangeville. they're not going to be able to have a lot of injuries, but they too return 4 starters on both sides of the ball. So trying to find a couple holes to fill there could lead to something for them. And, St. Thomas More's been another team that we've talked about over the last few years. They too come back with a lot of guys that are returning. The ones that stand out the most are Marty Devaney, Alex Huber, Michael Rosel, and Josh Krebs. Granted, they've lost their quarterback to graduation, and they've been more of a team that's relied on big speed along with that deep quarterback type threat. And they too have a new head coach, as their coach has left. Kerry Matthews has taken over that program this year in his first year. So, one of the things that he talked about was being able to control the line of scrimmage. He liked the leadership. They need to build cohesion. Very short-worded answers, very coach cliche to speak, but probably true in what he's trying to deal with and taking a look at the program as a first-year head coach.
All right, there you have it, your comprehensive look at 8-man football. Didn't cover all the teams, but covered all of them in at least our viewing area. So I'll leave you with this. If not Amboy, then who in 2025?
It's a good question. I really like St. Anne. That they do lose Chris Link, who was a game changer for them, but they do return quite a few key pieces. And then they have a couple guys that are going to be stepping into new roles as well. And quarterback Grant Pomeranski's back. So I think if St. Anne can increase their level of physicality based off of what I saw last year, and be able to get a couple more playmakers into the open field, I think that they can be a team to watch and beat. But Milledgeville, if it's not Amboy right now, Milledgeville is that other team that's really standing out to me. I know that Polo edged Milledgeville as far as like the ratings were concerned to open up the season. But when you really break it down, to me, Milledgeville has more experience and more playmakers coming back. This could very well be the year of the Missiles.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm going. I think it'll be Coach Roble and the Milledgeville Missiles to get back to Monmouth, and I think that they'll be my choice and my prediction of a state champion this year. So there you have it, Kyle. Our look at NUIC, 11-man, NUIC, the 8-man ranks too. So, boy, we've said it a handful of times, but it's going to be here before we know it. Week 1 coming up, under 40 days away. Do you know where you're going week 1 yet?
No, I haven't figured it out yet, but I will before long. I'm trying to think where I wanted to go. I believe it was an 8-man game. I think I was going to head down to the harbor, Milledgeville Amboy, week 1.
Yep. Well, Kyle, we appreciate you on as always. If you're not following at NUIC Football, you are doing something wrong. Please go there, give them a follow, give Kyle a follow. NUIC All Access as well, doing great things. All things NUIC, not just football, but certainly coverage. You're not going to find it any better place than NUIC Football. So, Kyle, thanks for joining us, and I'm sure that we will be doing this quite a bit during the season.
I hope so. Thanks, Mitch. I appreciate you having me on.
That'll do it for this week's episode of View from the West. Thank you so much for listening. I encourage you to go out to Apple Podcasts or Podbean and subscribe so you can follow along, and downloads will come automatically every week. You can follow along on Twitter at ViewFromWestPod. You can also email me if you're interested in being a sponsor, viewfromwestpod@gmail.com. Thanks so much. We'll see you next week.